This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to this presentation by the Federal Trade Commission on robocalls, how to stop and block unwanted calls. During this presentation, we will be muting your microphones in order to keep down the background noise. We also ask that you keep your camera off and set to who's talking for the best experience. Please feel free to use the chat box if you have any questions. Please note that all Milwaukee Public Libraries, with the exception of the Central Library, will be closed on November 3rd so that our staff may assist at the polls. If you have questions about voting, please see the banner on our webpage and click on Vote Absentee. And now I would like to introduce Carol Cando-Pineda. Carol is counsel with the Federal Trade Commission's Division of Consumer and Business Education, where she leads teams to create and distribute free consumer tips online, in print, on video, and on social media to help people spot scams and manage their money. She heads up the agency's outreach through public libraries, as well as the Military Consumer Partnership. Carol began her FTC career as a staff attorney, then served for several years as a liaison between the FTC and the U.S. Congress. Subsequently, she served on temporary assignment and as an attorney for the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Energy and Commerce. She earned her AB from Harvard College and her JD from Suffolk University School of Law. And now I'd like to hand the program over to Carol.
Hi, Mary. Thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation to talk today, and I appreciate everybody taking some time out of your afternoon to come and join me. So today we're going to talk about dealing with unwanted calls, generally robocalls, but not all of those unwanted calls are going to be robocalls. Let's start out with a few preliminaries. First, everything I'm talking about is based on FTC materials and resources, but my words are my own. They're not the FTC's. Just kind of an official disclaimer that I need to give. So the Federal Trade Commission is the nation's oldest consumer protection agency. There are a number of federal agencies that have got some small piece of consumer protection, but the FTC has got the broadest jurisdiction, and we're the oldest. We've been around since 1914. So in addition to the cases that we bring, the law enforcement actions, we also do materials for consumers, consumer education. That's the place where I'm at. And then we do media and business guidance to let people know what the law is, let businesses know how they can comply with the law, and also how they can protect themselves against scams that target businesses in particular. Okay, so in general today we're going to talk about robocalls, some of the new phishing scams that we've seen. Phishing doesn't have to happen by telephone. It's not always a robocall thing, but I think it's important for you to know about if you're interested in the kinds of things that are coming across through robocalls. We're going to talk a little bit about call blocking, the National Not Call Registry, and how you can report those unwanted calls. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so first of all, what is a robocall? I'm pretty sure at this point everybody knows what they are. They're the bane of our existence. I think I saw a media report that said people in the US are getting roughly 48 billion robocalls a year. So they're everywhere. So if you answer the phone and you hear a recorded message instead of a live person, it's a robocall. So robocalls have existed for probably 30 years. They've been around for a long time. Not in this exact same format or style. The technology was very different, but they existed. But why we're getting so many of them is that technology changed. It got easier, it got cheaper, and it became, we often find with the new technology, scammers are the first to jump on it and to use it to figure out how to monetize it. So the scammers know that they can, the more people they call, eventually they're going to get somebody that they can trick into sharing their money or their personal information. So now that it's cheap and easy, robocallers use the technology and they can call from any place in the world. So my first bit of advice about what you can do when you get robocalls is just to hang up. Okay, that doesn't stop you from getting them, but it can prevent you from inadvertently revealing information to them or or getting into a conversation with them. That's not going to be helpful if you get somebody on the phone. So you want to hang up. Some of the robocalls will tell you press 1 to get off this mailing list or to unsubscribe. We'll put on our do not call list if you press some number. Don't press any numbers on the phone pad. That really only confirms to them that this is a live telephone number that somebody monitors, or that there's another person on the end of it. And so you'll probably get more robocalls, more telemarketing calls if you do that. So make sure that you don't do that. Hang up, don't press any buttons. And then you want to use call blocking. That's the bulk of what we're going to talk about today. And that's probably the best avenue for you to try to cut down on the amount of robocalls that you get. In general, you would talk to your carrier. That's kind of the easiest way to figure out what your options are. But you can always search online for what experts in the field are talking about and what the latest technology might be to help you do that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. So the last thing you should know about robocalls is that, about 11 years ago, there was a law passed that said that companies cannot robocall you unless they've gotten your written permission to contact you that way. So if you sent them something in writing, if they sent you something and you sent it back in writing and you gave them permission to robocall you, then they can. But 90% of the time, that's not the case. Most of the time, people have not given their permission to get these kinds of calls. Now, and this is referring to robocalls that are trying to sell you something. They're illegal. So when you get that robocall that's trying to sell you something, you can hang up on it because you can be pretty sure that it's a scam. There's a national do not call registry, and legitimate companies abide by that registry. If you put your number on that registry, they can't telemarket you, not whether it's a robocall or just a regular telemarketing call. And most of the legitimate businesses do listen to that, and they don't do that. So if somebody's not on that, if they're not checking that do not call list and they're calling you anyway, you can be pretty much assured that they're calling you for a scam, and you can just hang up and don't think twice about it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the scams that are being advanced through telemarketing, through robocalls, sometimes through texts. I thought it was a good opportunity to bring people up to speed on some of these new scams that we're seeing. The things that I'm going to talk about today are things that we're seeing either an uptick in or it's kind of a new development. So the first one I wanted to talk about were these phone scams that are extorting parents. This one is really pretty awful. We put a blog post up about it this week. People are getting texts from a number that they don't recognize, and they may have a picture of your child in that text, and they may be threatening or somehow sinister. And they want you to pay money, or they're going to harm your child or do something to your child. So understandably, this would be extremely upsetting, and nobody wants to get a text like that. How they're doing this is they're probably randomly pulling down pictures from social media. So if your kid's picture is up on social media, that's where a scammer might have gotten it, and then they figure out how to text you and threaten you that way. So the first thing you want to do is let the police know, right? Because you want to make sure that that you've complained about that, and that they tell you what you should do, and maybe open up a case in case it gets any worse. And then you want to delete it. You don't want to send them any money because it's not going to do any good. They're really just going to continue to blackmail you. If they think they can get more money out of you, they will. And if they're asking you for money, then chances are they're really just trying to scam you out of your money. That is the hallmark of any scam, that they want to create some sense of urgency in you. They want to threaten some kind of really bad outcome, really bad result. Something terrible is going to happen to you, to a loved one, to your business, to something that you hold dear, if you don't pay them right away. And then they pretend to be a legitimate business. They pretend to be from the government. They pretend to be somebody that you know and say, I'm in trouble. I need help. Please send money. I can't get out of the country. And, I'm in a foreign country. I can't leave until you send me the money. The stories vary, and we can't get into all of them today. But those are the hallmarks of kind of a scam. The scammers follow those headlines. They know what people might be anxious about. They know the kinds of things that are happening in the headlines. They know where there's a gap in knowledge, where people may not be exactly familiar with what the right answer is. They might not be able to say, oh, that's a scam or that's not a scam. There might be just enough truth to it that it makes people nervous, and they want to just pay and make the problem go away. They can sound very, very plausible. And so with this kind of a scam, you want to know that they're taking that to the nth degree by using your kid's picture. So report it to the police so that you know you've at least done that in case there is somebody, deranged and it's a real situation. But know that scammers are doing this really just to get your money or to get your personal information to commit identity theft. Same thing with the scam threatening immigrants. People are either getting phone calls or texts saying if they don't pay a certain amount of money to the caller, sometimes they say that they're from the local sheriff's office. Sometimes they say they're from state police or from immigration and customs service. That if you don't pay immediately, we're coming to your house to arrest you. If you pay, we can make this problem go away. And so, of course, this is very frightening to people, and people are willing to pay anything to make that problem go away. You should know that no government agency is going to call and ask you to pay money to settle some kind of a problem. Government agencies don't operate that way, whether they're local, state, or federal. They're not going to call and ask you to pay using a gift card, using the PIN from a money pack card or a reloadable debt card. They're not going to ask you to wire transfer money. Those are all signs of a scam. So if somebody says that to you, then you know whatever came before it is probably a lie, and they're using it just to threaten you. So tech support scams or these phony refund scams, somebody will call and pretend to be from a legitimate tech company. Sometimes it's Microsoft has had a lot of these calls where somebody thinks they're getting a call from Microsoft, and the person will say, look, there's been an outage in your area, and we know that a number of computers in your town have suffered damage because of this power surge, and let me help you fix this problem right away. And they try to make you panic that your computer is either going to be damaged, that there's malware on it, that there's some sort of a problem, and that either they want you to grant permission to them to remotely take over your computer, which is possible, or they want you to pay for, allegedly, for software that they'll either put on your computer or they'll send to you, or they'll send you to a site to get it, to clean your computer and take care of the problem. No legitimate tech company is going to call you, and if there's a situation like that, you would find out in a different way. If you're really, really concerned, hang up, call a number that you know is legitimate. Call the customer service number of your ISP, of your carrier. Call the customer service number for that particular company, for Microsoft or whatever the company is, and find out if the story is true. Is there such a thing going on? I can tell you 99% of the time, it is a scam. It's not happening. That they're calling you just to threaten you, just to make you feel like there's a problem with your computer, and to get you to turn over that cash. If you do buy the software from them, the software is usually useless. It doesn't really do anything that you need for it to do. And sometimes they can even put malware or harmful software on your computer if you allow them to remote in. And they can pull other kinds of information, or they can damage your computer from doing that. So again, you want to hang up and not look twice. And if you want to do some research, do research on your own, independent of whatever that telephone number is or whatever that person is that called you. The last thing I wanted to mention are fake charities. And the reason I'm touching on that now is that, we've seen a lot of, um, there's just a lot going on this year, right? And there are a lot of times when people have wanted to reach out and help other people that they know are in trouble, whether it's wildfires in California or in Colorado, whether it's COVID related, whether it's helping in your community. Um, Lots of people have wanted to contribute and to give. And when we get to those kinds of times, and especially now as we're moving into the holiday season, which is traditionally the time where we see an uptick in these kinds of scams, the scammers come out of the woodwork and they create fake charities and they telemarket and they try to get you to give to their fake charities. So, it's probably a good idea if you're so inclined to give, to do a lot of research into the places that you want to give to. You don't want to give to somebody just over the phone or by a text. You don't want to knee jerk give to a funding, a crowdsourced funding website. You want to do a little bit of research and find out what's legitimate. Get a little bit more information about what's going on. Maybe find out what you can find out about this. Chances are, if you're getting robocalls about it, it's a scam. Sometimes it just might be, a not very well developed charity, a new charity. In which case, you just do a little bit of research and see whether there's somebody that you do want to contribute your money to. If you go to ftc.gov/charities, it'll give you some tips about how to research a charity and the kinds of websites that you can go to kind of evaluate them and see whether that you feel comfortable giving to them. Okay, so here's another scam that was very big in the summertime. I think we're still seeing it. It's kind of migrating a little bit. It started out hitting a lot of students. It's you get a text that says, we found you've got a package. It's waiting for you here. Click on the link so that you can arrange to get delivery or come pick it up or whatever. And so the reason it was pretty easy to do for colleges is that they could, it made sense. The kids left their campus in a rush in March when everything went into lockdown. They very well may have a package waiting for them when they finally get back to campus in August or September. So it made a lot of sense. But if you click on that link, it's probably going to load some sort of malware onto your phone, or they're going to trick you into giving up some personal information or your financial information. Say there's a fee to come pick up the package or something like that. So again, the best thing for you to do is to check where you ordinarily would pick up a package instead of relying on that text, because chances are it's not legitimate. Okay, another thing that some telemarketers and probably all robocallers are doing is called caller ID spoofing. So the reason I raise this is that a lot of people will say to me that, the caller ID said it was from, it was a 202 area code. That's Washington, D.C. So I thought it had to be the IRS calling me. It had to be Social Security Administration. They looked at that and they made the leap that, which makes sense, that it was a legitimate phone call. But you can't do that because caller ID can be spoofed. It can be faked. So you can't trust it as evidence that a call is really where they're not necessarily coming from where they say they're coming from. So they can make up any number and it's going to show on your caller ID. They set things up to use automated dialing software. That's how robocalls happen with this automated software. That's how they can call millions, in a very short period of time. They decide what number to put on your caller ID. So a favorite tactic is to make it look like it's a local phone call. So my area code happens to be 540. So no matter where I am, if I get a 540 call, I'm thinking, oh, is that somebody from my kid's school? Is that somebody that I know? Is that one of the neighbors whose number I don't have? It's definitely a way to sort of get you off balance, to trick you into picking up the phone. and then they can see what they can do. And within minutes, they've called millions of people, and then they can dump those telephone numbers and get new ones. So again, how you avoid this is using call blocking, and we'll talk about that in a minute. One last thing I wanted to mention, along with the caller ID spoofing and the high pressure sales tactics, another tactic that scammers use is to ask you to pay with a gift card. That I know it sounds kind of crazy, but don't do it. It's always a scam. The reason they ask for a gift card is that they can get you to go to, a CVS or a Costco or a Walmart or any store really and buy a gift card. And we're not talking small amounts. They're asking people, pressuring people to get gift cards, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 to make this whatever story they made up, they scared you with, to make that problem go away. Go get me this gift card. They want you to buy it, leave. You scratch off the PIN numbers in the parking lot. They keep you on the phone usually, and read them the PIN numbers. And then at that point, the value of that card is with them. And then they can resell the card number and the PIN someplace on the internet and get the money back. That's how they cash the money in. It's an untraceable payment method, which is what scammers are always going to ask for. So if somebody pressures you to pay with that gift card, if they want you to pay with a money wire transfer, like through MoneyGram or Western Union, if they pressure you to pay with cash or a reloadable debit card, those are all payment methods that as soon as you hand over that money, it's gone. It's almost impossible to get back. So that's why they want it to be untraceable, because they can disappear with your money, and that's that. So I just wanted to give everybody a little heads up about that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about blocking. Yeah, the ways that we have to deal with robocalls right now revolve around technologies to fight this technology, right? That's probably our most effective tool right now. So it depends whether you have a mobile phone or a phone that calls over the internet or a landline phone. There are slightly different things that you would do. But you want either to do some sort of call blocking or call labeling. It depends on your comfort level, on what you want. If you're afraid that you're going to miss important phone calls, you sort of have to weigh all that out for yourself. But each one of them has little things and tips that you can do. So first, on a mobile phone, you want to check out your mobile phone, see what built-in features the phone has. There may be a way to block phone calls. There may be a way to label phone calls. You want to contact your carrier and find out if they offer certain options. You may have to pay for those options, maybe a little extra, and maybe included in your plan. You just don't know about them. But that's where you would start. Check out the features in your phone. And you can also go onto the website of your phone's manufacturer to see if they list some of those features. If that's an easier way for you to search, you can find out that way. And then get onto your carrier's website and look around, maybe call their customer service and see if they could help you out, figure out what features are available. You may want to download a call blocking app. So you would go to whatever online store you go to get your other apps and see what's available. Some are free, but then there's a monthly fee that goes along with them. If privacy is a concern of yours, some of them do access your contacts. So you want to think about that to make sure that you're okay with that. And they should have a privacy policy that tells you exactly how they're sharing your information and how they're accessing your contacts and how they're sharing that, if that's something that you want to look into. So the options for what happens once you get the call blocking going on this app, they can be stopped entirely. Maybe it'll just ring silently, or sometimes you can set up, it'll just go straight to voicemail so that you can sort of call out the calls that way. There's also an organization, I think I've got the slide here with the URL on it, called the CTIA. And if you go to ctia.org, that's a trade association for all of the wireless carriers. And I think they have a list of the call blocking apps that they recommend to people. So that might also be a good place to start to research the apps before you download something. because that way you can, you know, somebody has vetted them a little bit, and they stand a better chance of being something that you would want, and that might be effective. Yeah, so I think that slide comes up in a minute, so let's check on that. All right, so first let's talk about how to stop unwanted calls on a landline. Again, start with your carrier and find out what services they might offer. These kinds of things are changing rapidly. Technology changes quickly, and so there might be something available to you that wasn't available, you know, a year or two ago. Again, sometimes they're going to be free. Sometimes you're going to have to pay a charge. You sort of have to do that calculation. Is it worth it to me to get this service done? Am I willing to pay for it for the peace of mind and not have the phone ringing off the hook? So basically, depending on what those other options are, you can also install a call blocking device. It's like a little box that you would attach to your phone. They operate in different ways. You'd have to go online and search call blocking device to see what would work with your phone and what you would want to get and what it does, the particular service that it offers. Sometimes they use a blacklist of calls, of numbers that should not get through, that you want to stop calls from. Sometimes they stop the call. Sometimes they just reroute them into a voicemail so that you can at least see who called. And then that way, you know, you're not going to miss. You have to go through an extra step, but you're not going to miss a call that came through from somebody that was mistakenly labeled as an unwanted call. So some of them, instead of a blacklist, might use a whitelist, so that you just give them, you provide a list of the numbers that are acceptable. You know, like all your friends and family, people you know they're going to call you. They go on your whitelist, and anybody else goes on that blacklist, and they can go into voicemail, and you can sort of sort it out later. So like I said, it depends on exactly the level of blockage that you're looking for and what you're willing to pay for, or if it's providing the service that you want. So if you use VoIP, voice over the internet protocol. So all that means is your calls are not being made over the phone lines, they're being made over the internet. So again, there might be internet-based services that can help you block calls. Your carrier can probably help you sort that out. If you're not sure whether you're on VoIP or not, if you're using a bundle like, you know, phone, cable, internet bundle, you're probably using VoIP. But you can always check with your carrier and find out whether that's the case, and then you can find out what your options are to block the calls through VoIP that way. Sometimes with the blocking services for VoIP, the calls might completely stop. They might ring silently, or they can go straight to voicemail. That's a big option for people that are, like as I mentioned before in the other two options, if you're concerned that you're going to miss out on certain phone calls. If it goes straight to voicemail, it's not going to bother you in the moment. It's not going to be constantly ringing, but then at least you can double check to see who called. And so each of these three graphics that I just showed you, it's available on our webpage, ftc.gov/calls, if you wanted to post these or use them in a newsletter or use them on your website, post them on social media, things like that, to share with other people if you are interested. So here's the site that I was talking about, ctia.org. That's where you can get a list of the call blocking apps that CTIA recommends. And then the FCC, which is the Federal Communications Commission, has links to information about particular companies and about blocking calls. So that's kind of a good place to start too, to get some information if you wanted to research this a little bit. Okay, so the FTC monitors the national, we maintain the National Do Not Call Registry. We created the registry, must be 16, 17 years ago now. It was phenomenally popular and worked really, really well. So that if you didn't want to get telemarketing calls, you put your number on the registry and verified your registration, and then you wouldn't get very many telemarketing calls. You wouldn't get any telemarketing calls from people trying to sell you things, but you would still get telemarketing calls from political groups and from charities. So, and that's still the case today. It does give you a choice about whether you want to get more telemarketing calls, whether you want to manage it a little bit. Legitimate telemarketers check the registry, and if they see your number on there, they take that number off of their calling list. So it's a way for legitimate telemarketers to kind of manage their list so you're not getting phone calls from them. That's why if you're getting robocalls and they're trying to sell you something, we pretty much know that it's a scam, that you can just hang up on it because it's an illegal robocall. They're not supposed to be calling you without written permission. And if your number is on the National Do Not Call Registry, they shouldn't be calling you at all. The legitimate telemarketers know that and abide by that. So the robocallers are the ones that are, perpetrating the fraud through the phone calls. So if you want to register your phone on the Do Not Call list, you can go to donotcall.gov. And I got the number written down here too. It's 888-382-1222. I'll read that again. 1-888-382-1222. If you call, you have to call from the phone that you want to register so that it matches up and they can verify. Otherwise, just go online to donotcall.gov and you can register that way. Okay. So another thing that you can do, it's not going to stop robocalls, but it sort of keeps you up to date on what's happening in the scam world as things evolve. We're seeing, especially with COVID, we've seen a number of scams had new life breathed into them. These scams that just sort of resurrected because the scammers had a new thing to scare people with and to threaten people with. And so, and they're starting to evolve now over the course of the time that COVID has been in our lives. The scams have also evolved. So if you go to ftc.gov/scams, you can see some of our tips and our blog posts about scams. We keep this up to date all the time with new scams as they come up. And if you click on email updates, you can sign up to get those blog posts and updates delivered right to your mailbox. Okay, so another thing that you can do to protect yourself, again, not so much from the robocalls, but if something happens because of a robocall or because of telemarketing or because of one of these scammy texts, you can order your free credit reports. By law, everybody is entitled to 3 free credit reports every year from the 3 main credit reporting companies. But the only place that you can get them is annualcreditreport.com. So if you go there, you can order your free credit report. We suggest that people stagger that a little bit. Some maybe order, TransUnion in February, order Equifax in July, order Experian in November, or just stretch them out, every 3 or 4 months. And then you're getting a snapshot of your credit report every 3 or 4 months rather than just once a year. And that sort of maximizes the value for you. Very often you'll see if there's a problem on one credit report, it'll eventually show up on the others, but it might take a little while for that to happen. They're not completely identical. They pull from mostly the same places, but not all the same. They're not completely identical. And it's a snapshot of your credit file on a particular day. So it's a nice little warning system to be able to see, even if the first credit report didn't show a problem, if the second one does, then you've probably caught it months ahead of time than you would have otherwise. So we always recommend that people do that just as a matter of keeping your finances in good order and having a good idea of what's out there about you so that you can correct it if there's a problem. Now, because of the pandemic, the credit reporting companies have said that they will give everyone a free credit report every week through the spring. So I think they announced that in April, so it was a full year. So at this point, there's probably like another 6 months on that. So every week you could go and get your credit report. Now, do you have to go and get it every week? No, but then if you just got your free annual credit report and you're thinking you run into a problem 2 weeks later, you could still go and get your credit report. You could get it 3 weeks later, just to see if the problem is corrected, see if anything else has happened. So this is a nice benefit, and it's good to keep that in mind, because if you are seeing problems, you can order the credit report and not have to worry about paying for it or staggering your annual credit reports to be able to see that the problem got cleaned up. So finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about identitytheft.gov. So if a scammer or a robocaller is trying to get information from you, they might either try to steal money from you directly, like just take something up, get your account numbers and try to take money out of that or charge things. Or they may just want your information. And the information is to commit identity theft. So if you do suspect that you've encountered identity theft, then go to identitytheft.gov. FTC created the site, maintains it. It's where you would report identitytheft.gov to FTC, but you would also get a personal recovery plan, advice about what to do next. So you'll have like a checklist of what you need to do to start to get that recovery going. It's got pre-filled forms and letters. Once you fill in the details about what happened to you and why you think identity theft happened, then it prints out into a certain kind of a report that you can use when you have to go to the various companies and explain, I didn't make that charge. It was an identity thief. And here's my identity theft affidavit from the FTC and the letter that you used to complain. So when you're starting to clean up the message and create that trail of correcting the damage, identitytheft.gov can help you do that. So we don't have time to go into all of those features right now and all of what that means, but I just wanted to raise it so that people knew that it was there, because all of these scams, sort of tied together, they're all, whatever the story is, whatever they're threatening you with, they're either trying to get money directly or trying to get information to be able to steal money and services using your identity. Okay, so I created this short resource list with some of the bigger resources that I talked about today, so that you would happen to be able to go to them. If you have a complaint, if somebody's called you trying to sell you something and you're on the do not call list, you can go to donotcall.gov and report them. You can file a complaint. And we'd like to hear those, because we've brought cases against those companies that are violating the do not call registry. And so we want to hear that. If you're on the list and it's not working and somebody's calling you, if it's not a political call, if it's not a survey, if it's not a charity, then if they're trying to sell you something, trying to get your money, we want to hear about it. So definitely think about filing a complaint at donotcall.gov. If you have any other kind of fraud that you'd like to report, go to reportfraud.ftc.gov starting next week. The next couple of days, we'll be using our old site, ftc.gov/complaint. But starting next week, we have this new site that's a little bit more helpful, that gives you some tips. Once you filed your complaint, it'll tell you some of the things that you might be able to do to fix the problem or correct it. So that's reportfraud.ftc.gov. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Federal Trade Commission or at FTC. And for the librarians in the audience, we've got our site, our portal for librarians, ftc.gov/libraries. Anybody can get on there, and I encourage everybody to look around. But we created it for librarians to be able to go onto one place and to see all of our big campaigns, our big websites. And we've organized it by audience, by patron group. So there's military consumer for our military audiences. There's materials for older consumers, materials for Spanish speakers, materials for identity theft victims, for people that would like some financial literacy information. It's all there for you to look around, and there are some programming ideas that are built in there on how to incorporate some of these materials, either into their own programs or into programs that you're already hosting. So I encourage you to look around there and to see what you might be able to find. So this is the new website that I was just referring you to, reportfraud.ftc.gov. And that's the end of my formal presentation, but I would love to chat with people or answer any questions that you might have.
Feel free to enter your questions in the chat box if you have any questions, and we will relay them to Carol.
Can we just speak to Carol?
Sure. If
Carol,
that's okay with you, Mary.
I have more of a statement than a question. I have Spectrum as my phone service, and obviously it's a VoIP service. They have a Noble Robo third-party call blocking service, and it seems to be just a waste of time. Only a few of the calls it rings once and it doesn't ring again, but many calls, like from supposedly from Apple or from the Social Security Administration or whoever, still come through, and that blocking service, it's a third-party blocking service, just doesn't seem to work for Spectrum.
Yeah. Well, all I can say is then you might need to take a step back and do some research on other possible services that are compatible with Spectrum.
Mm-hmm. This is a landline, Carol. This is not a mobile phone.
Right, but there's got to be some other options for landline. Do you think?
I'm sorry. What was that question?
There would be some other options available though for landline, right?
Well, you said you can buy a device of some kind.
A call blocking device, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You'd have to look into that, I guess, to see whether that would be workable with your phone.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that, but it doesn't surprise me that the technology, Nomo, I forget, I can never remember the name of that.
I think it's Noble Robo or something like that.
Yeah. I think that was considered very effective for a while, but I think the technology kind of just advances, and then they get ahead for a little while, and then technology has to devise different solutions.
What's so annoying is I use Zoom quite often, and it's interfering my Zoom meetings. Another strange thing that I found out with this Noble Robo is I have a specific bank that I use, and I use their online banking service, and they have a pay bills feature of that online service that this Noble Romo interfered with. And the reason I say it interfered with it is occasionally when I go to that website, I'm requested to enter a 4-digit code, and I have to get a call from this particular bank in order to get that code so I can enter it into the site so I can get in.
And that call's getting blocked, right?
Yeah, that call's getting blocked.
Yeah. I think that's why I suggest that people do some research and think about, for some people that might be a perfectly good option, right? If they're not using that sort of stuff, if they get a handful of phone calls from their 20 closest friends and family, and they don't care about anything else, a lot of this blocking is going to work. For some people, calling your carrier and maybe getting a labeling option. I know we have that. I have that personally. And so if you have the TV on and the phone rings, you get like a little message that tells you, high risk of spam, or it's your mom, or it's whoever. And we just let it go into voicemail because most of the time it is some sort of a scam call. Yeah. So you really just have to see what's available to you.
Yeah, I've only got one phone with caller ID, and all the other phones, like I said, when I'm in Zoom meetings and I don't want to be interrupted, I'm getting these robocalls.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say the last thing I'll say on that is I feel for you. I was giving a webinar about a month ago, and my phone rang, and I usually take it off the hook so that it doesn't interrupt a webinar. And I'm presenting, and it's ringing, and so I said, it was like right behind me, and I said, I'm so sorry, I forgot to take it off the hook. Give me just a second so I don't have to yell over this. And then the machine went on, and it was like an IRS scam. It was an imposter scam on the phone, and everybody could hear it over the webinar. We had a good laugh over that.
Yeah, yeah,
It happens. Yeah, it happens a lot.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a few other questions that have popped up in the chat box. Julia asks, or Julie asks, or she says, we seem to receive a lot of calls from spoofed numbers. Would a call blocking service block calls from random numbers like that?
You know, I don't know. I think you would have to call whoever you were trying to get the call blocking from, or look at their terms of service and try to figure out exactly, ask them that question, because I don't know how that works. I know there are some scams that there's one called the one ring scam, where they just call you once and then they hang up. And the hope is that you'll look at your phone and say, oh, I better call them back. I don't know who that was. Why did that call drop so fast? They're hoping to pique your curiosity to get you to call them back so that they can get around caller ID and call blocking and things like that. Same thing with when it was prevalent a while ago, where you would get a phone call from your own telephone number. So they would spoof the caller ID with your own telephone number. So when it came up, you'd be intrigued, like, wait a second, I can't call myself, and that you would answer it, and they could try to hook you in that way. So I'm not sure exactly how they guard against that, but it's worth asking.
Larry says, I have tried cursing and yelling at persons who come on after the robo intro. I find that they tend to be vindictive and target me more heavily. Have you heard of this happening?
Well, that's why our advice generally is to don't pick up in the first place, or hang up, is if you get somebody on the phone that's telemarketing. You don't want to engage them for a number of reasons, right? It tells them that it's a live telephone number, and that you're probably going to get more telephone calls that way. You could get somebody unstable on the phone that's going to argue with you. You could end up in some sort of a debate with them and reveal information accidentally, or even something that seems like a not sensitive or a not important piece of information might be just one more data piece for them. They might already have some information about you. Why turn that over to a scammer? Why create that? I've heard all kinds of stories about people getting really creative when waiting for the robocall person to pick up, blowing an air horn, or handing the phone to a child, or things like that. I don't recommend any of those. I would say just hang up. Just be done with them.
Janet wants to know, do you need to re-register your phone number yearly with the Do Not Call list?
No, you do not. Once you register it, you're on there. They go through the list, I think it's like every 5 years, and just sort of double check to make sure that they're all still live phone numbers. I think we find out automatically when a number is disconnected. And then so they do clean up the list on an ongoing basis, but they won't take your number off the list at all if it's still live. If you want it to come off, you just go back on and take it off. And that applies to your cell phone and to your landline or your VoIP phone. There's like an old chestnut that goes around the internet every couple of years. Oh, your mobile phone is about to be taken off the National Do Not Call Registry. The National Do Not Call Registry is about to charge you to put your cell phone on there, to get people all worked up. That's not true. It's the same rules for your mobile phone and for your cell phone. You can register, your landline phone. You can register your mobile, and it's not going to come off.
Angie says, I have Verizon, and my phone usually tells me that a spam call is coming in.
That's good. So that it sounds like that's kind of an automatic feature that she has. That would be an example of the labeling option as opposed to a blocking option.
I just want to let you people know too that on November 18th, Carol will be back with us giving a presentation on COVID scams. So You will see her again if you so
Yes,
desire.
the COVID scams are kind of interesting because they started out as one thing, and then they kind of evolved, or other ones have added on, and now they're changing into other things. As it's a really interesting case example of how scammers follow those headlines and how things change when they sense a gap in knowledge where they'll be able to confuse people. They take advantage of it, and we're able to see that sort of unfold in real time.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They find a way no matter what.
Right. That's right. Sadly.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, if anybody
or
has any
comments?
questions about identity theft or anything else as well, we could certainly talk about those. You don't have to limit yourself to.
I know for sure that a phone number that a person that works is identity theft protection is really wonderful through identity theft protection. My husband had that where they tried stealing his identity and they helped catch it.
This is
Through
a service.
LifeLock. Yeah, LifeLock offers it. It's wonderful. They protect you up to like $15,000. I recommend looking into it.
Yeah, I can't recommend anything one way or the other, but I would say if you're looking into any kind of a third-party service for identity theft protection, then just make sure you understand exactly what you're going to get for whatever money you're going to pay, and you know what they're going to do for you, and you know what they're going to do with your information. And so just do your research before you get involved in any service, but they're well worth looking into.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Gigi wants to know, how do we block spam text messages?
That's a tough one. I think again you have to contact your carrier to find out what options are available to you when it comes to texts. The most important thing to know about that is not to click on any links of anything that they've sent you by text.
All right, I think that might be all we have, Carol. Thank you
Terrific.
for giving this presentation, and thank you everyone for coming. Be sure to check out npl.org for future programs that we will be offering. I hope you all have a good day, and I hope you all stay well in this time. Thanks, Carol. I'll see you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.